Hello, everyone. Today is a Thursday, January 9th, 2020. This is the Cluster API Azure office hours meeting. This is our first meeting for 2020, so Happy New Year, everyone who's watching. It's a meeting that will be recorded and available on the internet, so please be mindful of what you say and do. Please be sure to adhere to the Kubernetes Code of Conduct, and in general, just be awesome folks. So for the people who are on the call, if you have any agenda items that you want to drop on, feel free to. The agenda is in the Zoom chat right now. I think there are some immediate things that we want to talk about. The first one on my end is also, if anyone is available and wants to take notes, please feel free to jump on. The first thing on my end is I'm going to have some meeting conflicts. And I think that overall we were talking about changing the meeting time to be more convenient for some of the people who might want to contribute across maybe in different time zones. So right now this is kind of convenient for US Eastern and Pacific, but not necessarily so for EMEA. And we have some contributors that are interested in joining more frequently there. So I'm going to put together a doodle. I didn't want to do it before the break to make sure that everyone actually sees it. So I'm going to put together a doodle for next week and send that out. And then what we can do is start a new meeting series for 2 weeks from now with a new time. So that should be enough soak time for people to get in votes. Any questions, comments, concerns? Sounds good to everyone? Cool. All right. So the second one is the moment we've all been waiting for, right? We need to release CAPC v2 or v1 alpha 2. So I think that we can make that happen for next week. Does that sound good to everyone? Is excited about that?
That sounds great.
So yeah, looking over the docs, I have been super busy, going to be honest. Ria has graciously offered to work on the docs, and she has already opened a PR to check that out. So I'll be doing a review of that. And speak of the Ria is here. So Ria, thank you for jumping on the docs. It looks like it should be fairly straightforward. I think so. I'd mentioned before, but my primary concern around the docs is that I had like a few people internally try out CAPC or try to try out CAPC with the current docs in place, and it has been a pain for them. So I worry that in the flurry of us getting excited and tweeting and blogging or whatever we're going to do about releasing v1 alpha 2, people are going to get to the repo and have a bad time, and I don't want that. So yeah, so I think that once we land the development docs, which looks like they're mostly done, to be honest, already, we can get that merged in. Cecile has done some awesome work in landing the BYO VNet work and opened some additional PRs and issues around support for a VNet that differs from VNet subnet group, a VNet resource group that differs from the primary resource group of the cluster. So that stuff is moving forward nicely. We've got a PR open, I believe, for the v1 alpha 3 types. So again, the plan is as soon as we release v1 alpha 2, we'll be speeding forward into v1 alpha 3. I don't think that we need to have a secondary release for v1 alpha 2 unless something is wildly wrong. And to be frank, we are a little behind now. So jumping into v1 alpha 3 as soon as we land that. Does that sound good to everyone? Cool. Cecile, with regards to the blockers, outside of the docs, we've buttoned up everything around image images, image building, all that good stuff, right?
Yeah, I think we're good on images for now, as long as there
Oh,
aren't any new Kubernetes versions that are released in the
okay.
interim.
Okay. So we have, I know we have a 116, we have a 117 as well.
No, let me just check which
Yeah.
ones that we have.
All right. So outside of that, I would want, are there easy like short links for images available? Because I'd want to also publish that in the repo.
Yeah, sorry, I'm cutting out. So I can send you, there's a link where you can use the Azure CLI to see all the images available, and it
Okay.
will list them in a table. Or
Okay,
not a
cool.
link, a command, sorry.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So since we have no 117 image, I think that we should get that out the door too before we release, if that sounds good.
Yeah, I can take care of that.
Cool. If you want, we can wait a little bit. So our tentatively plans are, I say tentatively just for the recording, but the patch release team is planning to release uh, patch releases for 117.1, 116.5, I think, and 115.8 on January 14th. So that's next week, Tuesday. If we want to wait until 117.1 comes out to build images, that would probably be a good move.
So the thing is, the images don't require any code changes in CabZ. We can just publish them independently. So I think we should still move forward with the release, and we won't have to make any amends. We can publish the images whenever those versions are available.
Okay, perfect, perfect. That is even better. All right. Okay, so we won't block on that. Yeah, and so I'll go over what our release docs are. I know we have some semblance of release docs and some manual stuff. I just want to make sure that nothing has changed on the upstream CAPI side before doing that, but I doubt it. It's really just going to be pushing the button to cutting a tag and then pushing the tag up. And yeah, that should be it. He says, hopefully. Cool. All right. So next up, nothing. No topics. No topics. We should probably plan to we should plan to plan, right? We should do a planning meeting. Maybe maybe we can plan to do that for one of the next two meetings. To give people an opportunity to kind of settle back into the work thing that we do, apparently. So if that sounds good, we can put something on the schedule for planning, especially since there are probably a few things that we want to look at for V1 Alpha 3. Cool. All right. It's an easy breezy meeting.
So wait, for the next release, is the docs that I put the PR for, like, that's the holdup right now, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they should work. There's details that I need to fix.
Yeah, I'm
But the
gonna.
docs won't work. Like, the thing is, it won't work anyway until there's a release because you have to build for master.
Right. So we want to make sure that we're differentiating between, I actually think that maybe we should move the docs to a different location or make it clear within the title that
Yeah, right now, like, getting started, it's a little bit.
Yeah, so that should probably be something like development guide, right? And land in like slash docs development guide or guides or
Oh,
something like
really?
that.
I don't see this from a development perspective. I was writing this from like I want to use CabZ and like create a cluster and then create multiple clusters from my cluster.
Right. So right now they're essentially written in the context of someone pulling from master, right? But there's a different set of docs too that are like the production grade docs that are in the cluster API book, right? Um,
Yes.
cluster
Yeah,
API.
so I was trying to make it from that perspective um, of like I'm new to Azure, but I want to be able to create this cluster. Okay, so if this is a development guide, then I gotta change it a little bit.
Okay.
Because I think we
Uh,
had, Cecile, don't we have docs that are specifically for developers already?
Yeah, so we had development and getting started, and development was for developers, getting started was for users. And we didn't have anything about Azure in the Cluster API book. I went and added an Azure section in the Cluster API book, so now it's there, but that means now there's duplicated info between the book and what's in Getting Started, and Getting Started is kind of outdated because it's from a while ago.
right.
So I think we should remove maybe Getting Started and merge whatever was in there that's kind of different from what's in development to development.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, so it would so if getting started remains, I don't think we need to keep the link around, but we can tombstone the link and then say that like, hey, if you're not building cluster API, if you're consuming cluster API, then here is the quick start and point them to the cluster API book, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the development docs should be for people who plan on working on the repo with us. So.
I
Okay.
think the prerequisites are the thing that, because that's nowhere else.
Sorry, you
I'm,
broke up.
Did I? Okay. I
Yeah.
said the prerequisites are the only thing I think, or the main thing that we're gonna have to keep because they're not in the book.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. The book
Requirement.
says the book says kubectl and installing or configuring a managed cluster, which is there's a little more. Like,
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
100% sure I've missed all of this because I'm not super familiar with what's there and what's not. So somebody might need to tweak the notes to capture this.
okay.
Okay. So I can go in and update the developing.md with some more Azure specific info for people that are like new to Azure, but they want to start developing with CabZ. I'm
Yeah, and
assuming that'll help.
I think that the development one has some of the stuff that you're writing up right now, like things about the service principal and
I don't know if it's as detailed, but yeah, hopefully.
yeah. So it's here you go.
Because yeah, if all you need if all you really needed was the developing guide, I mean, that one's there. So
Yeah, I'm feeling weird about this because I feel like having our instructions in the in the cluster API book is going to lead to mismatches in information. It would be great if we had if it could be a site, right? Or this could be a subdirectory of a site, right? That was if it lived in
yeah,
our repo and then was aggregated with the cluster API info and
yeah.
published.
I like ideally every single repo would have their own user docs, and then like if you want to aggregate it in one place, like hopefully you could pull the information. But like maybe this could be the source of truth. Would that be easier?
It's easier if it's easier if our repo is the source of truth, so we can manage everything in one place, and we also don't have to seek approvals for the cluster API book for the cluster API Azure stuff. But for right now, right now, I just want to ensure that people who are coming to the repo and have ideas and want to contribute can do that effectively.
Yeah, because like
Um,
for me, just going through the docs, it was harder. Like, are people gonna land in Cluster API, or are they gonna land in a specific provider first?
it depends, I guess. So if you're a consumer, if you've heard of Cluster API and you're like, wow, I want to start getting started there, and then you might think about your favorite cloud provider and
Yeah,
go there
because
first.
I would think that we would have links to all the cloud provider repos in like Cluster API, but then like for the specific source of truth for like what the provider is doing, it would live in like our repo. So we wouldn't go and update the instructions in Cluster API. We would update it like directly here. At least that's the way that I've thought about it.
Yeah, I
With
mean,
other repos that I've done.
yeah, that would be my preference too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because then we could keep the getting started guide. I can name it something else that makes a little bit more sense for like a new user. Um, like ideally that would even be in our like first initial readme too.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So someone could just like, they wouldn't have to actually know the directory structure to get started with Azure.
Exactly. Yeah. So maybe this is a Cluster API question because right now, if someone's ingress point is the Cluster API book, then
Mhm.
they're going to assume that the instructions there are correct, right? So we have to
Yeah.
make sure that those are correct for consumers. And then,
Yeah.
if someone knows that they want to develop on Cluster API Azure, then their ingress point is going to be different, right? So we also have to make sure that our README has all the bits that it needs. It feels circular though to
Yeah.
have something in the README to point someone back to the Cluster API book. And
yeah, maybe we can talk about this in the Cluster API meeting. I don't mind bringing it up
yeah, sure.
as a concern. um, yeah, I'm like just getting started with all this stuff. So, okay.
Cool.
So yeah, so what should I do? Sorry.
So I would.
No wonder my notes failed.
So I would say go into the development guide, right? And see if you end to end can like spin up a cluster as a developer. Right. So
okay. Yeah.
one.
So that what you care about is a developer guide for the next release. Yeah. So I can get the developer, like double check the developer docs, add detail if I need to from the getting started. Can we ignore the getting started for the next release? Or do you want me to get that here?
Yeah, so the next thing I would care about is, so like the development docs are important so we can onboard more people. But the second thing I care about is like, what's the experience going to be for someone, like after we say we've released Cluster API 030, right? Like what's their experience going to be?
Yeah.
Right. So like when we write the release notes, it's going to be, hey, here is the doc that you look at to do the stuff, or here's the command that you run. Do we point them to the Cluster API book? If that's the case, do we clean our instructions up? Can we run what's in the book today and get a working cluster?
And that's something we can, okay. So we can talk about that like in our Cluster API meeting too. But that doesn't, like the getting started stuff and like whether we put those instructions in Cluster API versus here, that's not a blocker for the next release though, right?
Yeah, no, I think like moving stuff around, if we need to change directory structures or the way that we do the docs, like that's totally fine.
Okay.
And that's not necessarily a user concern, as long as we're making sure that we tombstone files properly and point them in the right direction to set them up for success, right? But yeah, every doc that we have right now should make them be successful, right? Whether it's the Cluster API book, whether it's getting started. If getting started needs to go away, that's totally fine. And the development guide. So
okay, I'll double check the development guide, PR any fixes if you need be, and then hopefully that'll be good for getting us unblocked for the release, and then we can move forward with the actual user docs too.
I was just gonna say, I think for the release, the user docs are more important than the development guides because development
Yes.
is not tied to the release, but the release, people will see the release, want to try it out, and they're not gonna go build from source. They're gonna want to use the artifacts. And the only doc we have right now on how to do that is not, doesn't make sense with how things work now.
So it's not, so I mean that's one of the problems. Like that is not the only doc we have, right? It's also the quick start, right? So
Yeah.
if getting started is actually going to the quick start, then we can delete everything in getting started and just point
Yeah.
people to the quick start, right?
Yeah, we should at least, either remove getting started completely or fix it so it doesn't say things that are wrong. But we shouldn't have
Yeah.
wrong info out there.
Yeah.
Like my PR attempts to fix those inconsistencies, there's still some that there's still like cluster cuddle in some of the instructions in mine, which I want to delete. So there's no reference to it. But otherwise it should be usable. It just like if the release was out, it would be usable.
Okay, so tell you what, why don't we defer everything docs related? Ish, right? So run through the development guide and see if that works for you, right?
Okay.
If the development guide is fine, like that's a good step in the right direction. On the getting started side, delete getting started. Add a link in the README that says getting started and point them to the Cluster API book.
Okay.
And then we'll call it done for
The
V1 Alpha 2.
cluster
But
API, sorry.
sorry, what? No, keep going.
Um, sorry, this is tough. The cluster API book has a reference to getting started though for prerequisites, so we can't delete it altogether. Sorry.
Oh boy! All right.
So can we just keep getting started, rename it to prerequisites, remove everything that's not prerequisites, and then just do what you said, link in the README
Yeah, that sounds good.
for now.
Yeah.
It looks like that is B. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it is the getting started link. Okay.
Yeah. And most of the stuff I added was prereq related. So I can just basically it's everything except for make cluster, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
I would have to keep everything else except for the make cluster part.
Yeah, I mean, in my head, it's like, do I have the tools that I know I'm going to use? So I maybe it's not a hard requirement, but the suggestion of hey, maybe you should get kubectl, right? But do you have an Azure account? Do you have a service principal that you can use against this? One note for the doc, don't necessarily suggest that they have to create the service principal, right? Make sure
They
that
can run it without that.
Make sure that the language is you either need a service principal or something around you can use an existing service principal that does the stuff that you need it to do, or you can create one, right?
Okay, sure, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we just don't want people creating a bunch of service principals every run. And that's the thing that popped out to me immediately. The second piece would be we're going to have Linux users, Mac users, Windows users eventually, right? So the brew instruction should not be there.
Yeah.
Right? Say
I mostly
that,
put those in for myself because it's really hard to find some of those dependencies. But I didn't know if there was another section of references or something.
So I would, so for the getExt or something, I would point people out to the installation instructions for getExt, right? And depending on their platform, we should try not to write platform documentation for some other piece of software. Right?
Yeah. Okay, no problem. Yeah, I'll delete those. I wanted to make sure I still had them, so that's why it's rough notes.
I do the same. But now that
I'll clean that up.
Yeah, since I switched to Linux, I'm like, oh, that's not a command I can run and be successful, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that sounds good. And I will, as soon as you've got something up, just ping me and I'll take a look. I'm already tagged on the PR.
Cool. Yeah. Let me update a couple of those things so they're tiny, and then delete some things, and it should be good.
Cool.
Hopefully,
Cool.
we'll be a little bit more
Um,
unblocked.
What? There's a thing in my head and it's gone now. At some point we need to do a Calico upgrade, I'm thinking, and a container D1. We can put those up as good first issues, maybe, or one of us can take care of it. But that's also, it's not a rush. I think, you know, our first step is just getting 030 out the door and then moving on. Ace, from a consumer-ish standpoint, does all of that sound good to you?
Yes. I actually, I think I need to do something like Rita was saying. I need to spend some time and go through like end to end the current talks and the process to, I don't know, iron out anything that I hit on the way. Because I'm sure there will be stuff I haven't gone all the way through, like from the beginning to end in a while. So
Yeah, and it's kind of the same for me. I haven't like now we have the tilt instructions, and I haven't gone through any of that stuff. And
yeah, exactly.
it's been a while since I've developed on CAPC actually, and then we had the holiday, so.
Time to get back into the rhythm.
Yeah, for sure. Cecile has been holding us up. Alrighty. I think outside of that, we're probably set, unless people have more things they want to chat about.
Nope, I'm good.
Sweet. All right. Easy breezy. All right, everyone. I will send out doodles so we can get a new meeting in the calendar and get that scheduled. Stay tuned for that. Should be, if not tomorrow, then early next week. I'm basically, so one note is that I'm rescheduling like 5 or 6 meetings all at the same time, and they're all dependent on the results of each other. So, so just bear with me while I figure out what people are doing for the new year.
Cool.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you.
All right, take it easy, everyone. Good to see you. Bye.
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 Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Bye.
Bye.